Automatic motorcycles are nothing new. While they aren't as ubiquitous as their manual counterparts, they've been a part of the motorcycling world for quite some time. And the manufacturer we're talking about today is no exception to that. With a plethora of scooters using a belt-driven CVT system and bikes like the dual clutch transmission version of the Africa Twin, Honda has had their fingers in the automatic motorcycle world since the start, with the Honda-matic CB650R. Now, while that motorcycle released in 1976 and featured a 2-speed transmission with a hydraulic torque converter, the bike we have here today has an electronically driven motor attached to the clutch which operates it for you when you're starting, stopping and changing gears at speed. This is the 2026 Honda CBR650R e-clutch. Now, just like an East African ivory poacher, let's start with the elephant in the room, the e-clutch. Now, the easiest way to think about how this e-clutch works is a tiny little robot lives inside this box and runs around turning cogs that do everything your left hand would normally be doing while you're riding. It pulls in the clutch when you come to a stop, releases it slowly when you start to accelerate, pulls it in and lets it out for you when you change gears. How it achieves this is a series of motors that work in conjunction with fuel injection and ignition cuts to achieve most of the function of a manual clutch, quick shifter and a DCT at the same time. Honda says this is a unique blend of these approaches and offers new possibilities for new and seasoned riders. And to that, I actually agree. Because my left hand's free, I can actually have a nice cold drink while I ride. Or I could read a newspaper as well. I can even update my dating profile and try and get a few matches. I won't, but I'll try. But in all seriousness, I actually really like this feature because you can go from the standard scooter riding experience, except with the addition of gear changing, to riding a fully manual motorcycle with a clutch and everything, with an action as simple as just pulling in the clutch while you're riding and starting to use it. So you get the opportunity to make the ride as relaxing or as visceral as you want. This also sets the e-clutch system aside from other manufacturers' automatic shifting systems because they have paddle shifting and no clutch lever at all. And that leads me to the next part of the review, and also my biggest question: why the hell is it on a CBR? The CBR is the ultimate lamb's anti-hero to the R7 villainy that exists in the world. Often touted as the bike I got because everyone else rides an R7, the CBR650R is the only 4-cylinder offering in the 650 Lambs approved class. It's easily considered one of Honda's most popular road bikes, and it's clear to see why. That 4-cylinder growl through an unequal length exhaust manifold, some of the highest power figures in the 650 segment, and solid handling characteristics mixed with Honda's robust and reliable track record, you get a bike that is essentially a modern version of the legendary CBR600 F4. Not as aggressive as a true race-derived supersport, but not as relaxed as a traditional sports tourer, higher revving power for spirited riding, but plenty of low-end pickup for going to work and moseying along a cruisy country road. Now, just like a jack of all trades is a master of none, the CBR might show up to your house to fix your hot water, but once it realises it's a little bit more complicated than relighting the pilot light, it's going to have to call a plumber anyway. And that brings me to the suspension on the bike, which is actually really bad. Now, it's just basic Showa suspension and there's no adjustability in it at all, except for preload on the rear shock. But realistically, there's not much difference between the suspension in this bike and the suspension in the Ninja 650 or the Daytona 660 as well. It's a little bit disappointing. I kind of wish that instead of all the money and time developed into giving this bike an e-clutch, they actually put good suspension in the thing. Now, I know there probably is a bit of a cost difference there, but I think that would have been more beneficial to most riders. So the e-clutch works really well. I can come to this roundabout and go to a complete stop, totally not touching anything, bike doesn't stall, and then I can take off again without even using my left hand. In that way, it's a lot like a scooter, but I still have to change gears with my foot. So it's not fully automatic, and I guess by that example, it's not really a truly automatic motorcycle. but it just does feel that way because you don't necessarily have to use the clutch. It's better to refer to it as a motorcycle with an automatic clutch. In practice, it feels very much like a recluse clutch if you've ever ridden with one of those on an enduro bike. All right, that brings us to the part of the video where I answer some of the viewer questions from you guys on my Instagram. If you do have any questions about bikes I review, normally before I film the review, I post up a story with a little box. You can write any questions, so make sure you're following me, Send It With Shan on Instagram to get involved there if you have any specific questions when you see me pop up a story about a bike I'm reviewing. All right, so the first question comes from Ending Sunset. Power wheelies? No. If you de-restrict and tune this bike, then yeah, you're much more likely to be able to get some power wheelies out of it. But the way it is at the moment, not a chance. You do have traction control on it, and it does have a magic button, which I'm a big fan of, but in its lambs configuration, there is so little power up the top of the rev range that it's so hard to wheelie this thing. You got to like pull the clutch in at basically a standstill and redline the crap out of it, and even then it's got no power really to keep it up. So unless you're going 100% to balance point instantly, not a very good bike to wheelie. Like I said, if you de-restrict and tune it though, it's normal, it's fine, but definitely not going to be doing any power wheelies on this bike. The next question is from the artist formerly known as Mido. Is it technically a really big scooter now that it's an automatic? Well, it's not really an automatic, it's a semi-automatic. So the best way to look at this bike is that it's actually a normal bike, a normal manual bike, but it has an automatic clutch. So the clutch functions automatically, but everything else you still need to do manually. You still need to twist the throttle manually, you still need to shift up and down with your foot manually as well. If you want to rev match on the way down, when you downshift, you also have to rev match manually. So while it is automatic in a way, you know, you don't have to use your left hand to take off and stop and ride around, but you do still need to change gears. Can you use the E-clutch module as a frame slider? Now, he's saying that because quite comically, the E-clutch module sticks out very far off the side of the engine here. You can see that's huge, that thing. No, you can't use it as a crash slider, but that does mean that if you are buying racing covers for this bike from GB or anything, they're going to have to change their design to encapsulate the E-clutch. Because this is a series of gears and motors in there, you've got two motors here and then gears all running through there which actuate the clutch for you. Because of that, you really don't want to hit this on anything, because that would just be an entire module that you'd have to replace. So no, you can't use it as a frame slider. You are still going to have to buy Oggy knobs or whatever, and engine covers if you do want to get some crash protection for this thing. And the final question from the legends at Highside Shop, I bet you this is Phil asking it: do you need to service the E-clutch? The E-clutch itself doesn't require servicing, but the clutch will require servicing because it is a normal wet clutch in a motorcycle. Friction plates, steel plates pushed together with springs. You do need to service that as you would normally, so if you wear out the clutch or whatever. But the E-clutch module itself doesn't actually require servicing. That is just a set of motors and gears. There's not really anything in there that needs adjusting or servicing. All right, those are all the viewer questions for the CBR650R E-clutch edition. Remember, follow me on Instagram if you would like to get involved and jump on any of the stories I post of the bikes I'm reviewing and ask me some questions that I can answer for you, and also give you a little shout out in the video. And so that brings us to the end of the review today about the CBR650R and especially Honda's E-clutch system. I do think it's a really good system. I think it works really well, but I can see that they've fitted it to the CBR650R, even though it's not necessarily a bike that really needed it by any means. I can see why Honda put that E-clutch on this bike, because it's an extremely well-selling motorcycle for them, and it's going to get their E-clutch system out there and in the hands of as many riders as possible to learn on. But to me, on this bike, it feels like it's a bit of a tech demo. Realistically, this bike is lacking some of the sport touring features that you would expect for a sports tourer, and it's lacking some of the things that you want in a sports bike. It's okay for a first bike. It is a learner approved motorcycle here in Australia and in other places in the world. But in its current state, I don't see how it's benefiting at all from an e-clutch in any way, shape or form, to be quite honest with you. While you can just start using the clutch and the e-clutch turns off, it does turn itself back on after a few seconds. And even though in the menu you can go and actually switch it off properly, it resets every time you turn the key. So if you turn the bike off and then back on again, it resets and it goes back to normal with the e-clutch functioning again. On bikes like the Transalp and the Honda CBR650R that they've brought out, or 350, whatever capacity it is, that makes more sense. It seems like something you'd probably want. I don't know why this bike doesn't have something like cruise control or better suspension with adjustability. That seems to me like a much more logical place to have spent any development on this engine, on this bike. So as far as the e-clutch is concerned, I think it's a good idea, and I think it's very well implemented the way Honda have designed it. The fact that you can just start using the clutch normally, you don't actually have to forego the clutch and forego the gear changing experience that we've all come to love on motorcycles. You know, it's not like with Yamaha, BMW, KTM, and even some of the other Hondas with the DCT system, where the only way to have a manual mode is to use paddle shifters, and the DCT just electronically changes it for you. This is much better in the way that you can just use it exactly like a normal motorbike. You can pull the clutch lever in, change it, it's all good. When you're out on the road, the e-clutch feels exactly like an auto blipper and quick shifter. There's really no difference. As far as the CBR is concerned, it's pretty much as bog standard a motorcycle as you're ever going to get. Yeah, it's technically a sport bike, and I think Honda might even call it a super sport, but it's absolutely not a super sport. It is still a sport tourer. It's sort of in a in-between realm between super sport and normal sport tourer as far as the geometry is concerned though. I noticed as soon as I started riding the bike that my shoulders started to bear a lot of the pressure from riding, whereas on my R7 it's mainly my wrists and my lower back, and when I'm on an upright touring bike I basically don't have any pressure on my arms at all. It's all on my back and my ass on the seat. So it is a little bit in between, and you are going to have to get used to it if you're coming from more traditional super sport or tourer. Like if you're getting off a Ninja 400 and you're getting on this is going to be a little bit more aggressive than a Ninja 400. But it's not going to be as aggressive as an R7, for example. So all in all, it's a pretty good standard motorcycle. I don't really see this being very good at any one particular thing, but it's not particularly bad at anything either. This is genuinely one of the most middle-of-the-road bikes I've ever ridden, and that's sort of, apart from the suspension, that's sort of its strong suit. Because if you're trying to learn how to ride a motorcycle, the CBR650 is a great baseline to start from. Because it's so middle of the road and it doesn't do any one thing particularly good, you can do everything you ever want to do on a motorcycle to a reasonably okay standard. I just think that if you're doing anything other than commuting and maybe the occasional hills run, there are definitely some other bikes out there I'd be looking at. But as far as it goes for being a Honda, it does what it says on the tin. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I just wanted to say at the end of the video, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I put a lot of effort into this video, and thankfully today I've had Sam come to help me, which is awesome. And I'm actually borrowing the same filming equipment I used to film the BMW video that I did recently, which is an FX3 and all that sort of stuff, courtesy of Real Geordie. I've been surrounded by an absolutely massive amount of support, and the comments I'm getting on the last video, I'm sure there's going to be comments on this video of support. I just want to say that I read every single one, I go through every single one, and they actually stick with me. If you do want to get in touch with me about anything and ask questions, while I'm a small channel, it's a really good idea to do that. And I'm also totally approachable on Instagram is probably the best way, because I'm absolutely addicted to doom scrolling, so I'm going to be on there regardless. So make sure you follow me at Send It With Shan. I hope you really enjoyed the review. Unlike the bigger channels that do motorcycle reviews and the magazines and all that sort of stuff, this is entirely self-funded by me. I do all the editing myself, I write everything myself, I source the bikes myself off of people I know. I'm really trying to make this something entertaining for you guys to watch, and the support is showing me that I'm heading in the right direction. So I just want to say that I really appreciate it, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Sick.